Bloody Jacob here to give you my thoughts on the Wrecking Crew. Now, the Wrecking Crew brings together the kind of the fan casting or the fan pairing of Dave Bautista and Jason Momoa as estranged brothers who reunite after the kind of mysterious death of their father. So they kind of have to sort out their shit, their personal turmoil, and then kind of figure out why their father was killed. And it kind of brings upon hell down on their heads and etc. And I was recently looking forward to this movie, and I meant it was sort of like a fan pairing because people were talking about this for a while. They should do a movie together. They look somewhat alike. They kind of do. And I guess they became somewhat of buddies, in real life, and they actually ended up pushing this forward themselves. Which is really cool. I've always been a big fan of Dave Bautista since his professional wrestling days, and I'm just really, really happy to see how far he's come acting wise. It seems to have gotten better and better over time, whether it's action like this or some roles are a bit more dramatic. I'm just really happy with where he's gone. Jason Momoa, I've always liked. I was watching this more for Batista, I will admit, but I do like Momoa, even if he is just Jason Momoa in a lot of his projects these days. There's something to him that it's always easy enough to watch, at least. This film was initially going to be directed by David Leitch, who worked on, of course, the first John Wick movie, Atomic Blonde, Deadpool 2, which I even really liked, The Fall Guy as well, with Emily Blunt and Ryan Gosling a couple of years back. But ended up not working because of scheduling with The Fall Guy, so we got the director of Blue Beetle instead. Blue Beetle is not a perfect film, but I liked it. I thought it was solid. And you can at least see kind of some of that energy here, which I think fit, going from Blue Beetle to like an R-rated buddy action comedy is a little bit different, but I think they tuned it just fine. And I was pleased with kind of with the balance between Batista and Momoa, because at first it seemed like, oh, Batista's kind of the main character, oh, then Momoa kind of is, oh, they're kind of leaning more on Momoa for the action, which they do for a chunk of it, and Batista's supposed to be the older brother, so he's a bit more pushing up there, even though they're not really that far apart in age. They give Momoa actually, probably in the first like half or so, the best action scene in the movie where he's attacking his home by the Yakuza. But then Batista luckily gets his own action scene, kind of dedicated to him, later on near the third act. It's more like a side profile, like, hallway kind of thing, which we see a lot of these days, but it was good to get assured that Batista's still going to get his moments to shine as well, and they get bits together too. And just some of the fight scenes were pretty freaking awesome in this. I will admit, like the two I just mentioned, and then Batista has this particular one-on-one with kind of another more Yakuza-based boss, with like a sword staff kind of weapon, and how Batista executes this guy is one of the most badass kills I've seen in a while. And Momoa too, just how he flies around and clobbers the shit out of people. It's handled as well as it ever is here. And just, of course, their banter is essential. You get a little bit of flavor of, like They Live or even like Debt Collectors 2 here, because they eventually do kind of, clash. They kind of have to hash it out. They kind of beat the crap out of each other at one point, kind of more in that scene below. But what I was taken away from that with was something I didn't necessarily expect, was actually some seriously not well acted scenes. They actually do give a little bit of time to the relationship between the brothers here, Batista being James Holly and Momoa being Johnny Holly, and it's a really good performance from Batista, as you'd expect, and probably one of Momoa's more dialed in bits or scenes lately, along with kind of his shows with C and everything, which is a really good series, by the way. Which Batista also played a kind of guest star villain role in that second season. I still need to watch more of that, by the way. But yeah, so it had a good combination here. The fun factor, which you're expecting, is kind of for the most part the forefront, but it does make you invest a little bit, puts a little bit of effort into that side of it too, anyway. You do have Claes Bang in here as pretty much our primary villain. I do like that guy a lot. He did the Netflix Dracula, which I had some issues with, but he was definitely a very good Dracula. He's done some other prominent roles like in The Northman a few years ago, which was a great movie. Marina Baccarin is also in this. Also recently, the Greenland sequel. Don't always love her as much as I feel like I should, but I thought she was just fine here as Momoa's kind of long-term girlfriend. Tamara Morrison is also in here. Names like Branscombe Richmond and Jacob Batalon. I will say the movie felt like it was going a little bit long. It's like a smidgen over 2 hours, so not really anything that ridiculous, but it did feel a little bit dragged on by a certain point for me. But it's still very much a worthwhile time. Definitely one of the better times I've had of 2026 so far. I'm sure it'll be at least on the better half of it as the year goes on. But yeah, it's a shame that this couldn't be seen in theaters. I think it would have been a cool movie for that. It's on Amazon. Probably gonna have to get a bootleg, physical copy of it at some point, because that's the nature of things these days. A lot of times, unfortunately. But yeah, let me guys thought about this one. Submitting it on Letterboxd, I'd probably give it like a 3.5, 4 out of 5, somewhere in there. Let me know what you guys thought. Follow me on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. Later.